program a robot to be able to pour a glass of beer. So Vincent said he's going to play that for us right now for all of you people that arrived early.
I think the whole Detroit Lions team needs that.
He's COVID ready, apparently.
I just thought I need one, and I wish that this was my glass now.
Wow.
Fantastic.
It's got a nice head on
That
it
was
too.
good. That was good.
Poured
Question
properly.
is, will it go to the refrigerator and get the beer for you?
Yeah.
I show you one who can do that.
Someday the robot will make the beer right there and then pour it.
That would be some really gross beer. It would be so new and fresh, like not fermented yet.
You're right.
Well, we have a good turnout today, so we'll wait a couple minutes more, and feel free to speak up and say hi to people that you know.
Hi, Alan.
Hi.
How you doing? Let's see who else. Who else do I know?
Hi, Judy.
Hi, hey. You look great.
Debbie,
On a big screen. I don't know some of the people, but it's awfully nice to see everybody.
Wally Brittany is here.
How do you
Returned.
do? Hi there.
Oh, there you go. Hey, Wally.
Hi there, Judy.
Hi, Wally. David here.
Oh, hi there, David.
Rick Pettit's in the house. Hi, Alan.
Oh, there's
Bob
Deb.
Belker's in the house. If that's you, Bob, I'm not sure if that's you or.
Yep, that's me. Hi, Debbie.
Hey, good to see you.
You too.
All right.
Hi, Dr. Friday. Hi, Peggy Weber. And others.
Hi, Debbie. Nice to see you. Nice to see everyone, actually.
Yes. Maybe at some point we can see each other in person now that things seem to be opening up.
Yes, we need to talk about doing some plant tours, setting some of that up. I think there'd be an interest for people to come out and do that.
How about brewery tours?
And yeah, a brewery. We could actually have this meeting at Ritual here in Redlands.
Yeah. We could just have a progressive a thing, but a designated driver.
We get a bus that'll pick everybody up and drop everyone else.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to
that's
leave
it.
anybody out.
That's it. The bus.
Then we could go over to Hangar 24.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that place.
What other local breweries do you all like in your region? Hi, Wendy.
I forget the name of it,
Hi.
but the growler that I got was it Redlands, I believe? That was a good place too, but it was a small place. It wasn't as big as Hangar 24.
Escape has their new place down in downtown Redlands.
Oh, Escape.
Oh, Escape. Is that the same one then?
It used to be over kind of by where the drive-in theater used to be, right off of
They moved.
the main. Yeah, they actually have two locations now. They have the original location,
Okay,
and then they built a new one. So,
because that's where I got the growler from, is from there.
and the nice thing about the old Escape location is right across the parking lot is the distillery, JD Distillery. So, you know, if you don't like beer, you can get something a little stronger. So.
We have a drive-in in Redlands?
They did a long time ago.
Yeah.
So we'll have to try that again. We got a coupon from them
Yep.
that we offered to everybody who registered for this happy hour event. So You
I
could
got
drive all the
mine.
way over to Redlands and get a growler if you wanted. So we'll have to try that again.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was.
So if you all out there have a favorite local beer manufacturer, let us know. So we'll see if we can set up a coupon situation. Just kind of fun.
There we go. Now I can see everybody's lovely face. I have to figure these things out. This has made me very computer, well, somewhat literate. I just like to get all of the people on the screen. All right, we got a good turnout. This is
Yeah.
nice.
We have a
And
great
everybody's on the video. It's really nice when you can see everybody.
So for those of you that are just now checking in, you missed a video of a robot pouring a glass of beer. And you never know what exciting things will happen before the program starts. So you're welcome to check in early and say hi to friends as we have been doing thus far. But it's about time to start. So I'd like to give my formal welcome. We're glad that you're here today. Hope you're all settled in with your favorite happy hour beverage and snacks. I wanted you to be aware that we are recording this meeting. The video recording will be available Monday afternoon on our website under the About and Videos. And that way you can feel free to share this program with others in your company who couldn't make it today. The Manufacturers Council is a member of the California's Manufacturing Network, and we would like to thank California Manufacturing Technology Consulting, CMTC, for its partnership and support. And a big thank you to all of you who helped spread the word about this event today. So we've got a program coming up in July, and I'm going to have Kay Anderson, who's our project director, tell us more about next month. Kay, can you go ahead?
Yeah. Hello. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight David Charles Pearson. He's going to be our speaker for next month. He's going to talk about University of California Riverside. He's going to talk about University of California Riverside's program, Discover UCR. It's going to connect manufacturers to technology resources. And David Pearson's been a member of the UCR since 2019. He has 35 years senior management experience across technical, operational, and general management, with a PhD in biophysics and MBA in technology management, and has a corporate director certification. We're really excited to have him speaking and presenting. So go ahead and say hello, David.
Hi there, everybody. David Pearson, pleasure to meet you all. And I'm going to do my usual advertisement for my community when I get on calls. Behind me is Mount San Jacinto, looking up from Riverside. And I'm lucky to live in Idlewild, the town with the mayor as a dog. And I get to drive down to the hustle and bustle of the Inland Empire under normal working days. It's about an hour's drive, different world, and one I'm really glad to be part of. So I look forward to telling you about Discover UCR next month.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David.
Thanks, Kay. So today we are honored to have Dr. Johannes Buenes, economist and professor of global business at University of Redlands, and I think, rising national name in economic transition to automation. He's also the founding director of the Institute for Spatial Economic Analysis and founding partner of SEI Consulting, and holds the William R. and S. Sue Johnson Endowed Chair for Spatial Economic Analysis and Regional Planning. And so, armed with his studies and data, Johannes is going to help us peek into the future. We will have a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. So Johannes, thank you so much for coming and presenting to us today. And we are excited to have you. And go ahead, tell us about your projections.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. It's really hard to live up to what you just said. So, but I'll try my very best. So if I fail, I can always blame it on Molly that she just pitched me too high. So with that, I actually would like to share my screen, and maybe you can let me know whether you are able to see it.
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, good. So yeah, the topic for the next 3 hours will be manufacturing automation in the not 3 hours? No, I put my whole, how long? 30 minutes? Okay, 30 minutes. I try to squeeze it into 30, 35 minutes, what is actually taking about 3 hours to explain in full. So I hope you understand that I may have to skip a few slides as we move forward. Yeah, but what I'm trying to do is I'll try to give you a glimpse what economists think at this moment, what or specifically what our own research also shows, how automation may affect manufacturing, specifically in the Inland Empire in the future, and specifically what might be different than what it's right now, and what may be the same. And I will close with a few suggestions of what I think may be interesting to look at. But first of all, let's answer the question that everyone is interested in. How will robots take US manufacturing jobs? And the answer is, of course, yes, at least in the medium and long run, but of course not yours. So like if you are really tired from your long workday, so this is a basic message, you are going to be safe, activate your airbags on your desks, and we're ready to go for the boring data stuff. Okay, so the brief outline of what I want to try to do is pretty much 3 major topics. I want to convince you that automation actually accelerates, and that this has effects for manufacturing. Secondly, we do expect, specifically for the Inland Empire, labor shortages on the top of the educational distribution, but possibly some relaxation and some surplus on the bottom end of the educational distribution. And so I'll, in the third part, briefly I'll look into the, for me, combined package of manufacturing and logistics, because logistics demand is a derived demand for whatever manufacturers do, in essence, and how that may play out in the Inland Empire, and based on the changes that we are foreseeing, how to prepare for that. But before we get started, I have to do, of course, my usual spiel that everyone else has to do. All views presented as solely the authors do not represent the university as published or any sponsors, financial support from any university gratefully acknowledged. Thank you. And so I want to tell you a little bit about IC. It was established in April 2011 as a result of the Great Recession. Feel free to check out the analysis. We do spatial analysis of economic phenomena. What you see here is a employment growth map in the background. But some of you may recall our work on the housing market, where we showed that if you go down to the square mile level, each of those, I don't know, I hope you see my mouse. Can you see my mouse? Okay, so each one of these columns represents a square mile, and we showed that while the average growth was in house prices was about, can't remember exactly, 250% or so in the Inland Empire, there were pockets where you literally had almost 400% growth in house prices, and that drove a lot of the collapse here. Now we're looking at the economic impact of COVID, specifically since shutdowns were on the county level. What would have happened if we actually used a different measure, like a citywide or even zip code level stuff? So, and the results are quite stunning. But this is not the question today. What I really want you to think about me here today is, yeah, certainly this question of automation keeps me up at night. And so every morning I get up and think, what do I need to do today to help prepare society for the coming challenges of automation? Because there will be challenges. I'm convinced of that. And what skills do I need to acquire in order to do this a little better than yesterday? And so let's look at now why this keeps me up at night. And so let's look at whether there is actually evidence for automation acceleration. What I have here is a graph that you wish was your retirement portfolio, but unfortunately, these are growth rates or total deployment in percentage point from like a 100%, starting from 100% here or 1 here in different types of technologies. So down here, you see this one, this like light gray line is the deployment rate of industrial robots in manufacturing, projected forward if the current deployment rate of 11% holds steady. So this is not a forecast or a something like that. It's simply a projection forward. If the current was to continue, then this is what we would see. If we had done similar projections for industrial equipment in the 80s, so now the timeline down there, of course, is not correct. We would get the purple line. For IT growth, it was a little bit stronger than this. In the 90s, then we would get this one. If we look at some emerging technologies like exoskeletons, I'll show you an example of that later. That's like the stuff from Avatar, where this guy kind of like muscled through the areas. You probably remember this. Exoskeleton growth right now is 26%. Professional service robot growth is 32%, and household robot growth deployment is 40%. So starting with a 40% growth rate, you get 25 times the deployment within about 8 years. So 25 times, not 25%, 25 times, if that held constant. Of course, that's not going to hold constant at that rate. So like, don't be fooled by the numbers, but so just the comparison, since we don't have really reliable forecasts, specifically that go in the long run, I want to point out that we are seeing in certain sectors of the economy activity that outpaces anything that we've seen before in technical revolutions. How does it play out on the company level? This is an example for Amazon. Amazon in 2013 had 1,000 robots. In 2017, they had 45,000 robots. That's an annual growth rate of 260%. The current number is not like you get different estimates. They don't release that, but it didn't continue at that pace. So, but there can be really fast growth. And if you look at manufacturing, it's really quite stunning. This is data from 87 till 17. What you notice is that what lots of people know about is that, well, manufacturing employment in the United States declined over that time, about 25%. But in the same time, you not quite, but like getting close to doubling your output. And that's what most people don't know. They only know this number that, yeah, manufacturing jobs were going away. But we actually saw this kind of development in output. And that's a manufacturing labor productivity growth of about 3.2% per year. We don't even need that growth of productivity in the entire economy to get a similar picture for the entire economy than we have had in the manufacturing sector historically. What drove that? There's a famous paper now by 2 researchers from the East Coast, Asimoglu at MIT and Restrepo, I think, from Duke, I can't remember exactly, from 2017. And they showed that there is, if you look at across regions and count the robots that are in all the economic regions here, then you notice that there's a downward sloping effect, and that those regions that had the highest robot deployment, you all know robots are especially prevalent in the car industry. Detroit here leads the pack. What you get then is that each robot on average replaces about 5.6 or 5.8, I forgot the exact comma number, digit number, workers. So each robot. Okay, so now we can use that and do a little simulation. It's really, again, just a simulation. It's not a forecast or a projection. I will actually go into why this simulation is going to be wrong towards the end of that presentation, but it gives you an idea of what's going on. So as you may have noticed that after 2007, after 2011, we saw some increase in manufacturing employment. And if that increase had continued, this line would have been correct. We would have moved from 12 and a little bit million people in manufacturing to almost 14 million. So with robot deployment continuing at that pace, we would have seen that amount of robot deployment and this amount of labor. So if that just held and everything would just like be as historically, then we would see manufacturing labor go down to about 2 million by 2035. It's not going to happen. Don't worry. No whiskey yet. The whiskey comes later. Okay, so we talked about distilleries before. It's just that you can see this is just a simulation to show you the power of what's called the exponential function if things continue the same way as they have historically. So we need to ask the question, of course, in a minute, well, will that actually continue? Will it get faster? Will it slow down? What other effects will happen? So one of the things that you were promised in the press release, in case you saw that, you may ask, well, where does all the investment go? Well, the deployment rates have actually been pretty constant between 11 and 13% over the last longer than a decade that I looked at the data of robots in manufacturing. So the interesting thing is, where does venture capital go? And so I don't have access to the direct original data. So this is secondhand information. But the levels in 2019 for enterprise technologies were about 30 billion. For consumer technologies were 23 billion. And that means a change of roughly 100% in enterprise technology and minus 25% for consumer products. So the venture capitalists seem to think that there's something going on. So you may ask yourself, what's the effect on manufacturing? This guy always talks about services. You know, should we really be interested in this? So, well, I think we should be. And the reason for that is fourfold. I call that the 4S. Speed, size, substitution technology, and scale. Let me first go to speed. For full disclosure, I did work for McKinsey for a short period of time. And this is a quote from James Manica, director of the McKinsey Global Institute. But as you can tell by my career path, I enjoyed academia over consulting. And so that's why I'm here today. And so, but he said, in the last 5 years or so, we have seen these technologies make more progress than the last 50 years before, especially the artificial intelligence part. And what he refers to really is here the number of patents that have been submitted to the patent office. Now, as for size, you know, like the manufacturing sector has always been happy to employ robots because there was dangerous work to be done, poisonous work to be done, and so on. Think of painting a car or so, not something that you want to have done by humans. So, but now the interesting thing is that robots escape the manufacturing sector. That means they start penetrating other sectors, namely services and agriculture. Here, the black line is industry, meaning that includes mining and construction. That's the service sector, and that's agriculture, of course. And so just think about the scale of services versus like the manufacturing sector. When we have robots in the service sector, that means we will see enormous economies of scale and scope. Meaning that certain parts, like service robots, don't look that much different than manufacturing robots. So if you can share parts across those types of machines, then you should see cost regression. And that is where manufacturing will be positively affected. Automation will get cheaper for you guys. That doesn't make it any simpler, or it's still going to be hard, but people work on making it easier. The second thing is substitution technology. So you can ask 200 different futurists. I think by now we have at least that many on the planet, and they give you 200 different answers of what are the most important technologies. So I just selected a bunch of them that seem to show up in everyone's pocketbook. And so you don't need to learn those by heart. What I really want to point out to you, those 5 that I hope you see now in blue-gray here, are all related to IT. And the IT sector and the development in the IT sector is something that we understand very well. And so we know what to expect in terms of the development. The next thing is really scale. That goes again to this question of economies of scale and economies of scope. So every one of you carries an artificial intelligence device with you. I abuse it just right now as a little stopwatch so that I'm not going over the 3 hours. It's 35 minutes. And so, yeah, but like if you talk to Cortana or Siri or whoever you prefer to talk to, that's an artificial intelligence device that understands you. And so we had pretty much AI devices go from 7% to 70% market share in the phone area within just 7 years. And now we're selling 1.4 billion per year of these devices. Just think of the economies of scale that you can reach with that. And a lot of that AI code that's put in cell phones can be recycled and reused in other areas. So let's look at some of the examples of the stuff that we see here. I start with some just stuff they're very familiar with. That's not really automation in the way that you're used to it. That's just outsourcing your labor, like the labor that the store provided to you. You are their worker now. The same is actually happening, not quite like we're getting one step further here. Instead of having the interaction again, this is the input side. We just saw the checkout side. When we really think of Amazon Go, where you just walk into the store and you just walk out, take whatever you want, you walk out again, that is much more of a real automation in the service sector because there's no need for anyone to check you out. The payment is calculated automatically and poked out of your payment system. So you all love your 5 baristas in the local Starbucks or whichever store, coffee shop you go to, but Starbucks has now also these semi-self-service booths where only one person makes sure that the supplies are there. They also have more fully automated version, and that's one, I think that's in the airport or so in China. So there's no person there anymore. People just walk by and check where the supplies are in there. This is Flippy, the hamburger flipping robot. I think there is one in Pasadena. There's supposed to be one soon in Redlands, I've been told. This is my wife's favorite. It's a robotic chef that cooks 2,000 meals. You can train it to do the ones that you like the best. And that's the favorite of the Boston students because it's Spice is an automated kitchen created by 3 or 4 MIT graduates that teamed up with a star-rated chef. You type into your phone that you want to show up in 5 minutes and then get your star-rated bowl meal fully automatically cooked. If you want to go back to Las Vegas, here's the Tipsy robot. 2 robotic arms shaking your margarita or whatever mojito. If you want to know about the delicacy of what machines can handle now, think of strawberry picking machines. Now let's go closer to manufacturing. Well, closer means here, first let's look at the logistics sector. The orange bots that you see down there, these are actually the robots that Amazon deployed. They move around the materials in the warehouse. So this is Amazon today, and this is Amazon tomorrow. Well, robots don't need any lights, so you can switch off the lights. That's what the robots will. The robots, if you switch on the lights, that's what you're going to see. So these are the types of machines, and they look remarkably similar to the ones that you probably saw in your own manufacturing facility. Uniqlo has a warehouse that cuts labor by 90%. The Singapore airport plans to, like right now, has Terminal 4 fully automated. There's only one person working there, and that's at the customs, or the only place where humans work is at the customs. Everything else is completely automated, no human at all. So now they want to move it to Terminal 5, which handles 50 million passengers per year, completely automated, not a single person. The next the generation of trucks doesn't even have a cabin for drivers anymore. That's from Volvo. And this is like my little favorite here. This is a the last 50 feet delivery robot that carries your box to your entrance. Like Amazon is of course really interested in that. They spent 27 billion 2 years ago on this kind of delivery. The Ford, who builds that robot combination, they estimate the market to be about 330 billion annually. So if something is 330 billion annually, you can guarantee that the lawyers find a way to make it happen, even if people don't like it yet. So some of the guys here specifically handle maybe a robot that you'll see in warehouses nearby. They were actually inspired originally, or the development was inspired and sponsored by a competition that DARPA put out as a consequence of the Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan, because the robots that were available at that time just couldn't enter the place and help. So I still remember this incredible sacrifice that specifically older Japanese engineers and retirees did by entering the plant, risking their own lives to preserve the lives of others. And so now those robots literally can dance. And I'll share that a link definitely so that you can see dancing robots on 2 legs. And you can push those guys, and like they'll even on ice and they'll recover. They don't stumble. It's really unbelievable. Something now that gets us closer to stuff that you might be interested in or might have been seen, that's SoberEye, which is a artificial intelligence technology to improve safety. So people just put on these semi-glasses, look into it, and the AI system can detect whether you're fatigued, whether you're sleep deprived, whether you're on medications or drugs, and so that is there to increase workplace safety and reduce accidents. Would you consider wearing a contact lens when you look at the sky that actually tells you what stars are you seeing? Or would you consider wearing such a contact lens instead of glasses if you have to repair something? So there are now contact lenses that allow you to have screen protection. This is an exoskeleton in case that's for the manufacturing or warehousing sector, for the logistics sector. So you can see that there are robotic arms attached to the human arms. So you can combine the robotic strength with the tactile abilities and the motor skills of a human. So here, I mean, just to be sure, if you read any logos or so, I'm not getting any royalties or so from showing any particular robots here. So, but here is an ABB robot where they really try to make the programming of robots accessible for almost anyone. And the setup, as easy as 1, 2, 3. And that's actually really important from my perspective, because historically, robotics favored large businesses. Now, robotics can enter small businesses. One thing that you may have heard of, but may have not seen in action is what's called robotic process automation. So the worst day of the year is, of course, tax day for me. The second worst day is coming 12 times a month, or at least before COVID, and that was doing my receipts and my travel reimbursements. And so I had to do all these steps in order to get that done. But now I just, if the university decided to implement that system that already exists, then all that you need to do is scan your receipts. The rest is completely done automatically and brings down the total work that's probably an hour or two per month to a few minutes at most. Even if I if I have rule issues, say I ordered alcohol, which the university doesn't support, then it goes to a supervisor for approval or for rejection, or it automatically takes it off. Entirely software-based application of that is actually that you do a complete monitoring and capturing of all manual processes that happen in your company. So you build up a software genome of your company. So when you have to bring in new people, you can make sure that they start efficiently and not need to be trained from the very basics, so that they until all the way up they master the processes. And so that's completely monitoring and capturing. Of course, it reminds us a little bit of 1984, at least me. But I can clearly see the efficiency gains that manufacturers can get. So then you can discover and optimize your processes based on the genome that you've created, and then transform those processes and go to entirely new things. Now, this is just a few examples. But what's really playing out for you guys is how this works out in the market. So, because at any point in time, you have to look at labor costs versus robot prices. And that's the scissor that has developed since 1990. Now that leads us to the question, what will labor availability be like specifically in the Inland Empire? So let's look at automatability overall first. By some estimate, Brian Osborne, 2017, 47% of current total US employment could technically, not necessarily economically, but technically be automated in the next 2 decades. That means we have the technology to replace those workers, but doesn't mean that everyone does it, or that it makes economic sense. But it will, of course, make increasing economic sense based on falling robot prices. So some of you may have seen this map, which was published in The Atlantic, that came out of our institute, where we looked at, well, what are the most vulnerable places in terms of automatability, based on the composition of the labor force and the automatability by job. And so that is us here. And the stats behind it is we are actually the most vulnerable metro in California, the 4th most vulnerable metro in the nation to automatability, and about 63% of jobs in the Inland Empire can technically be automated. And why is that? Well, let's look at our occupational, that's not industries, that's occupational groups. And so if you look at those occupational groups, what you see that our top 5 groups of employees and workers have incredibly high risk. Sorry, that is 79%, not 0.79. These are actually shares. It says percentage here. So, but this is 79% in production. The one that you probably are most interested in, it's about 80%. That can be technically automated in the Inland Empire. There are other areas that are, of course, that's why you don't need to worry, because you're all in the management field. So we all know that, education is a safety net, and that shows up here. If you look at the master's degrees in blue and the doctoral degrees here, what you see that those guys are least vulnerable and they're really well paid. The bad paid jobs, the lowest wage jobs with little education, no formal education credential, are the most at risk. So because the probability of automation goes in from left to right. Okay, so you can see the red blobs here, and they're large: cashiers, waiters, retail sales, personal care aides, and so on, store clerks. Versus physicians, chief executives. Hey, you're right on the top here. Anyway, so And that's like my little side tip for parents that have teenage or somewhat older kids. The difference between no degree versus a PhD or doctorate or legal degree or so is about 6-fold. And the biggest jump is from a bachelor's in percentage point terms from bachelor's to master's. So you may want to talk to your kids about what they want to do in terms of academics. Now let's look at what happened historically to really understand the point that I tried to make in terms of the labor in the Inland Empire. So at this point, we don't know whether nationwide we will see unemployment go up or go down with automation. There's a lot of evidence that suggests that this is no different than it has been historically. In fact, that the mechanisms work exactly the same, and those mechanisms have worked the same for a very long time. So now, what you see here is the real wages adjusted for inflation on the top line here of people with professional degrees, and the bottom blue line for people without a high school degree. And then this is a bachelor's and so on. And so you see that after 73, bachelor's basically stayed constant on average. Only people with a professional degree had real wage increases, and everyone else lost out in that time period. So now, and that's happening right after, like here's when the PC was introduced. And that's the internet revolution. So that means, you know, we created plenty of jobs up here. The labor demand was really high here. And we created plenty of jobs down here, but not enough to drive up the wages. And the interesting thing is, that happened before. During the Industrial Revolution, according to estimates of some researchers, for 70 years, 70 years, real wages stayed constant. For the average Joe, the Industrial Revolution meant nothing. No improvement, only for people with high levels of education or entrepreneurs or business people like yourself. And a lot of them lost out. So now we've created, as I said, lots of jobs up here and lots of jobs down there. But the wave of automation that we're seeing right now will particularly and specifically in the Inland Empire attack this slice of the labor market. And that is consistent. I don't have the time to go through that in total anymore. Otherwise, Molly will throw me out. But the macro factors all favor automation right now, and increasing minimum wages will make it very hard for people to find jobs then again if the automation alternatives start to play out. Don't forget, like, automation is hard. Don't want to discount that. But when minimum wages rise, companies tend to look for alternatives. Let's briefly look for manufacturing versus logistics, very briefly, I promise, and then how to prepare. And for that, we actually need to understand what the role of this pandemic was. So as you can see here, we see now more, or we have discovered more pandemics and epidemics, these are just counts, in the last 20 years than we did the entire 100 years before. We need to be aware that pandemics and epidemics will become a fact of life for us. They will return. And they have specific effects. I don't go through that in total. I just want to point out that technology that we have allowed us not only to have meetings on Zoom right now, induce behavioral changes, but also start immunize our supply chains. And immunization of supply chains means automation, and it means deglobalization, bringing supply chain parts back to the United States. And automation favors that. So you have a direct and an indirect effect here. So how much can be actually automated in manufacturing? Like, I have about 100 different or 80 to 100 different manufacturing industries, and I picked like the lowest and the highest share. So here, this is computer and peripheral equipment manufacturing is about 30%. For fiber, yarn, and thread mills, that's nationwide. It's about 82%. That's not specifically for for the Inland Empire. For logistics, it's about 73%, and our logistics sector is large. Specifically, you should expect that e-commerce logistics demand will increase, automation will lower job demand, but deglobalization will hit our ports and the whole logistics parts that's coming along with it. And we will see some reallocation because current resources are actually used inefficiently. And I can talk about that more if you're interested in the Q&A section. So how to prepare for all these things? Let me first pull all the threads together. So I hope I was able to convince you that we do see accelerated investment in automation. That is the expectation that automation deployment will increase, specific robotic deployment. We also see a shift specifically from venture capital firms, from consumer products to processes. There are many different drivers. We've never had a situation like that we had so many different technologies mature at the same time. That actually will allow this cocktail to target all sectors and the entire value chain of in the entire economy. Historically, we only had certain parts of the value chain really attacked by this. So since the mechanisms have not changed, we should expect to play them out in the same way. So what does it mean for manufacturing in the Inland Empire? Well, companies will be pressured to automate to stay competitive, to automate to meet the labor shortages that you're facing right now, and they're not going to go away in the next year. But in the medium and long run, we expect to see a surplus of less educated workers and a real shortage of highly educated workers. Those that you will need the most urgently, specifically if repatriation will happen. And so we will see large logistics sectors changes in the next decade, but that may actually not be such a bad thing for manufacturing because it may give you the workforce that you need, and it may also give you the space in case of repatriation. I started out with the 2 questions that I put on my fridge, and I want to give you maybe 2 questions that you want to put on your fridge and then prime your pump a little bit with what you could do with that. So maybe after that presentation, you want to think about, what do I need to do today to help prepare my region, my company, my department, my staff for the coming changes of automation? And what skills do I and my staff members need to acquire in order to meet this challenge at least a little better than yesterday? So what are things that you could do? Well, you may think of monitoring and capturing the processes in your company, or invite a consultant to do that, but I know your processes are complex. Secondly, you may want to start looking for training partners to develop a training plan for the people that you expect to need over the next 5 years. Think about having contractual arrangements to keep workers after training. You don't want to pay for training and then they run away to your competitor. Think about keeping your top talent with extra incentives, because top talent will be even more competed for by companies than it's right now. And you may also continue, like specifically when you meet that, need to meet that challenge, try to keep your the workers that have all the experience that you need a little bit longer. And then when you've done all that, it might be a good time to think about automation. If you still question whether this can actually happen this way, like, I mean, this is nice, it's all beautiful data and so on. Think of the Easter Parade in 1900 in New York City, Fifth Avenue. So this is what it was in 1913. Look, these were all horses. These are all cars. It happened before. It will happen again. If you have any questions, or need help with any of that, this is of course part of the things that we do, both on the research side as on the implementation side. Feel free to contact us, and thank you very much for your attention and for listening and not falling onto your airbag. At least if you did, you didn't have your mic on because I didn't hear anything. Thank you. Now I'm happy to entertain any questions, and I promise not to get my beer before I'm done answering.